last year, the Delight Cafe team and I traveled across the U.S. researching this rapidly growing industry of CBD products. What we have found throughout the industry were products that were inconsistent in dosage and used ingredients that weren't even lab tested. Products with chalky textures, bitter aftertaste, and worst of all, confusion among the CBD consumers. That's why we created Delight Cafe. A 15 milligram, lab-tested, all-natural, water-soluble hemp CBD powder pack. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. Add it to your favorite drink of choice, wherever, whenever, on the go. Quickly find your calm, your balance, and your delight when you need it most.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Tonight we have the one, the only, the clown is who we're going to be talking about, Mr. the Joker. Brett Gordon is sitting in the corner over here. Boop. He is Mr. Brett.
Talking about the clown, you were going to introduce me.
I was setting you up to watch what you'd do. He is the CEO of Businesses Are People. Two, believing he can change the world by teaching people about business. I am Brandon Croucher. I know that's not the right way. It's making businesses understand that people are too. And I am Brandon Croucher, the CEO of Delight Cafe, Delight Digital Network, Fresh Brewed Teas, and whatever else you want to name me for, because apparently I do a lot of things and I need to learn how to balance myself. Now, I say all of that because tonight's episode of One Square at a Time is going to be one of my favorites. I am so grateful you're tuning in. If this is your first time watching, we are literally doing a show about the Joker. It is a leadership perspective as the Joker. So Brett's going to teach me about leadership and how one square at a time, like the king on a chessboard, it's moving around and learning how your team is and building your tool belt up. But the Joker is going to be a tool that we can add to our tool belt at the end of this episode. So, Mr. Brett Gordon, I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to hear what you got. The Joker. Go for me, buddy.
All right. Well, in leadership, the key to leadership is understanding people. Understanding the people that you're leading, understanding yourself, understanding me, myself, and I, the first team that you have to lead. And the Joker brings out a lot of things that are going on in people's minds, in people's lives, and in the environment in which your business is running, as well as the world around you. And the Joker talks in terms that oftentimes people don't, and that is about, how he perceives the world and his perception of the world, whether it be the Joker of Cesar Romero back in the Batman series on TV, Jack Nicholson, Joaquin Phoenix, or Heath Ledger. They and I know there's the one other, but didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. I forgot his name.
Jack Nicholson?
No. There was this guy who's up in the right there.
Oh, I don't count him. Don't even count him.
Yeah. So anyhow, the point here is, regardless of which one you're looking at, there's this different perception of the world. There's this super hyper observant person, which oftentimes is in today's world identified as somebody who's got some sort of a mental illness. When your mind isn't able to chunk things together, or it chunks things together in a way that is not normal, then the stimuli that are around us all the time, the millions of stimuli that literally our body is dealing with every second, doesn't get chunked in a way that creates something that is manageable. It becomes overwhelming. And when it becomes overwhelming, then people can oftentimes go into a very hyper detailed aspect of a certain part of their life.
Okay.
And that can be a very negative part of the life, or they can perceive everything that's going around them. Like when you're walking down the street, oftentimes you hear people talking to each other, and they may be telling somebody about how this asshole did this to me, and they did that. And when somebody who isn't chunking things right, or is hyper sensitive to what's being said, they hear people go by and they hear that, and they're like, they're talking about me. And that's not true. But what it is your mind is looking for those types of things to be able to validate and justify how you're feeling about yourself. And it just adds one more piece of evidence that supports the way that you're currently perceiving yourself. And that can drive you, depending on how you perceive it, because it's not all negative. People can also perceive, every positive thing that is said around them to be about themselves. And they take on a very empowering view of life because of that. But more often than not, it tends to move toward the negative side, where even your normal people can hear these types of things. And although they may not think it directly, it may trigger something in their mind that then says, oh, I just had this discussion with my significant other. I just had this argument with my child. I just had this disagreement at work. And it triggers something, which then they relive that. They relive it in a little bit different perspective, and it continues to grow, or possibly, if you want to call it, fester.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that those types of negative thoughts or beliefs reinforce your view of yourself, the more you're going to seek out, unintentionally most of the time, additional stimuli or evidence that, again, reinforces that belief. So it is definitely something that we need to be aware of, and why I say that, the superpower, not the tool, but the superpower of the Joker is being hyper observant. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say that, if you look at all the things that the Joker did, all the things, the way that he planned his crimes, the way that he planned to capture Batman or kill Batman or others, and how he was going to take those or do those things, they were very, very detailed. He is very well aware of what's going on around him, where the plan is going to take place, the timing, what the expectations are. These are definitely, beneficial to committing a crime, but they're also beneficial to living your life. In fact, in the Air Force, when I was in the Air Force, especially when I was in flying training, it was about situational awareness, attention to detail, checking your six, meaning look at what's behind you as well as what's in front of you. And it's absolutely critical to staying alive in combat situations. Joaquin Phoenix and is one person's favorite characterization of the Joker, and Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job. And to me, it was the movie that I was most afraid to watch.
Really?
Yeah, because in the short clips that I saw before the movie, you could tell that it was really going to hit hard on mental health, mental wellness, and the treatment or the perception of that in today's world. And it's scary to me because I think we do a very poor job in today's world of dealing with mental wellness from a general perspective. And for me, being from the military, how we deal with PTSD and people coming back from these overseas combat situations where they're really not given, I don't believe, a proper way to reintegrate into society and deal with the shit that they saw while they were over there. And
So would you say this movie might be more of a trigger movie?
yes, I think even the way Heath Ledger portrayed him, Jack Nicholson was a Jack Nicholson, but it was not quite as, I don't think it was as in touch with life as the way that Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix portrayed the character.
Okay.
I thought that Nicholson did it in a way that was more movie-like, if you want to call it, where Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix did it on the streets of the world today. I mean, whether it be walking down the street with a gun and shooting things up, or walking down a stairway and being in your own world as you're dancing your way down the stairway. It was, but I think that, you know, even the way that Joaquin Phoenix lost weight to such an extreme to be able to portray the character the way that he felt the character needed to be portrayed, and the fact that the reality of life is you have those types of things going on in people's lives when they do have mental wellness challenges. They can become anorexic, they can become bulimic, they can become you know, overeaters, and just, but there's a physical aspect of the mental challenge that they're having, and those you know, are obvious. Other people, let's say for instance Robin Williams, had a lot of these types of things going on in the back of his mind. I'm not going to call them demonic. I'm going to call them that he definitely didn't feel, he didn't have some of the feeling internally, especially as he was diagnosed with God damn it.
I don't believe that was it.
No, that wasn't it. Well, when he was diagnosed as having losing his memory, let's just call it that, and his belief that, you know, if it wasn't for him being as sharp as he was all the time, that was going to make him a lesser person, and eventually I think that caused a lot of the challenges that he had that led to death. But you wouldn't have noticed that from his outward appearance. So we've got two different aspects. But anyhow, I think Joaquin Phoenix and the way that he lost the weight, the way that he portrayed the character, the type of life he led with his mother, and the stories that she told him about how he grew up, and, you know, it was just, I think, something that was deeply touching to me from a real life perspective.
I like what Stuart has to say here.
Stuart was talking about Cesar Romero as being his. Now, Cesar Romero, you know, he was kind of the first on-screen live person to portray the Joker, and set the stage for everything that came from that point. And although the Joker and Batman had some comedic aspect to it, he still had that very maniacal laugh, that very maniacal look in his eye, very detailed and hyper observant, even in the Batman characters, which again, I think is part of the thing that, you know, drives people crazy. If you are so heavily tied to the hyper observancy of everything that goes on around you. And I mean that they tend to get everything around them. It's just overwhelming. And that overwhelm ends up coming out in some sort of a oftentimes non-beneficial or non-empowering way.
I agree. Sorry, I'm responding to Stuart. I saw his comment here. Different portrayals also are affected by the state of the world at the time. And I think that's very true. That's why I asked if that was a trigger movie, if you thought it was a trigger movie, because I remember going opening night to the Joker, and a lot of people were nervous with the Joaquin Phoenix one. I remember my mom and dad even asking me, the sun like is blocked now, finally. God, it was so bright for a while there. But they asked me, do you feel this movie like related to you because of the mental health aspect of it? And I didn't feel this movie connected to me in a mental health aspect. I think it showed a lot more of the problems that we have that need to be addressed.
Hey, I just want to ask you real quick, as you took the glasses off, how did you feel?
I felt I could see because I wasn't squinting because I have blue eyes. So I felt I could see again.
And the world was brighter.
Oh, yes, it was.
So
Fernando,
the reason I bring that up, though, is that oftentimes when you have mental wellness challenges, you go through life with these dark gray glasses on, and the world looks and your perception is through those glasses. If you can take those glasses off, it changes the way the world appears to you.
You're 100% correct. But at the same point, taking the glasses off, this is Jared Leto. Fernando, at the beginning of this episode, we nixed Jared Leto from the Joker discussion. We're like, he just isn't one of the Jokers. Like, the rest of them all fit very well. They have their own like persona that they did. I will say this. I think Joaquin Phoenix did a phenomenal job of getting little parts of each one of them into that final Joker role. You saw him have the dancing like Jack Nicholas. You saw him like get Nicholson. I keep saying the golfer's name.
Either that or he's dancing with a golf club.
Right, yeah. But he got the Heath Ledger part where you saw him starting to break. Even at the beginning of the movie, you saw parts of Cheech Romero like coming out in certain ways he was saying things. I know I used the wrong name, didn't I?
Okay.
Caesar Romero. Caesar Salad Romero. I don't like that. That's mean. It just sounds bad like that. But Caesar Romero, he literally pulled all of them together. And then the movie, I think, triggered a lot of people because they do feel lost in this world. And at a young age, if you're somebody that's already told you're different, you're special, there's a point where those words aren't there anymore. We're not Batman's. Batman was, he had money. He grew up in an area where if something was wrong, they fix it. And they could afford to, where the Joker grew up and he was taking care of his mom and the world was going to shit. Kind of feels like where we're at now. And for him to come through, I think the way he comes out and is the way he like snaps himself is what people were afraid of. There's going to be another thing like that. I don't think it's going to be something where it's a trigger movie like that. I think that the Joker as a whole is meant to be along the lines of how we as a society have gone. And that affects how we portray them. And your thing says 2019, but what about the new Joker movie coming out in 2022?
I haven't seen it yet. So right now I'm just what we had available to us.
Touche. I saw that say that and I was like, wait a minute.
There a couple things. One,
agree.
I think one of the things about Joaquin Phoenix character also that really resonates and is kind of scary from the perspective that we see it every day is actually like here in Vegas. If you walk down the street, you're going to see people that are doing things that are different, and they're not in the state of mind that would be. They're in a state of mind that we don't understand, and we oftentimes are afraid of. We'll cross the street to avoid that, which is, I mean, logical, especially from the fight or flight perspective, because we don't know how or why they're reacting or acting the way they are. And it may not be anything that is going to be scary or dangerous to us, but we walk across the street. Now, to that person who saw you do that, they're like, these people are rejecting me. And that is part of what I think came out in Joaquin Phoenix portrayal. And that's when he ended up, like shooting people in the train station. Well, first they started picking on somebody, but then it became kind of personal to him. And that's when he pulled out the gun and he started shooting up people. And then he became significant, which is something that oftentimes drives people into this depression, is they don't feel that they have a significance in their life. They don't have a reason for being. And when they get into that state of mind, oftentimes you will do something that attracts attention, even if it's negative attention, because that creates a significance in your mind that people are paying attention to you. Whether that be you just, threaten somebody and that person reacted or responded to it, shied away from you, whatever, or to the actual act of killing, or to being on stage and getting people to cheer for you because of your comedic act or your music or whatever. Everybody needs to have significance in their life. We just need to help guide people to be able to have it in a positive way, and not look for ways just to get attention. Oftentimes in a relationship or even as a child, if you're looking for the love of your parents or you're looking for the love of your significant other, oftentimes that love can be misconstrued to be negative attention, getting spanked, getting hit. But at least you're getting acknowledged. And then you continue down that path, even though it may be painful from a physical perspective and even a mental perspective, it's getting you a significance, it's getting you attention. And that's something that oftentimes leads people down a path that can be very, very disempowering, and keep people in relationships well beyond when they should, or maybe for the rest of their life, for two reasons. One, they do get attention, and secondly, there is a consistency or a certainty in their life. They know that if I do this thing, if I do this, say something in this way, or I do something in this way, I'm going to get in trouble. But at least I know what that trouble is going to be like. It may be getting beat up. It may be getting verbally assaulted, but I know what it is. And to me, I would rather have that certainty in my life of what the response is going to be than to step out of this relationship and go into something I don't know. And that unknown or that uncertainty is scarier than the certainty of the physical or mental punishment that they may receive from doing something in a relationship that's disempowering. So just something.
Who is your favorite Joker?
Going back a little bit more to what Stuart was saying before, and that is, the characters themselves actually do have, I believe, a tie into the way that the world was at the time the character or the movie was filmed. So, or at least oftentimes the like Jack Nicholson had a little bit of what was going on in today's world at that time. That was actually more of the Jimmy Hoffa type time. And
sure. That's a good
mob-like. And you look at Joaquin Phoenix and what is kind of going on even today. You look at Heath Ledger, and there was a lot of, that's, I think, where we started to see more of the mass killings, kids,
Yeah.
going out, Columbine, that kind of thing. And that was kind of a way that Heath Ledger character actually started to take things out as well.
Which one was your favorite? Just out of curiosity, because we had a whole conversation in the chat about it. Like, I really do. Heath Ledger is one of my favorites. Joaquin Phoenix and Jack Nicklaus would be my X2. I couldn't put one over the other, but Heath Ledger is by far my favorite. Which one played the role best to you? And if you say all of them and blah because of the time frame and blah, 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 I'm going to laugh at you because everybody, if he does that, you're allowed to make fun. Boo this man if he does that.
Well, each one of them taught something different. But I think that for me, there were some lines in Jack Nicholson's portrayal that I think were super heavy hitting lines that we can relate to. And then also in Joaquin Phoenix version, there was some lines in there that I thought were extremely powerful. So I would guess going with Nicholson and Joaquin Phoenix, though there's a lot to be said for Heath Ledger's as well.
So the reason I like Heath's is because I think he actually hit certain mental illnesses. You do things that most people don't catch, and you can catch it with them. And he does that. He had them perfectly. He was licking his lips.
The lips and stuff.
Perfect. He did little things that make a huge difference, and he nailed them. That's why I like that. But I have to ask you a side question. Who's your favorite Batman? I couldn't remember all of them.
I couldn't get into Michael Keaton as Batman. It just, for some reason, I mean, I guess just maybe the physical aspect. I didn't like Val Kilmer.
I'm trying to think.
Christian Bale, I think, did a good
That's
job.
who I'm thinking of. Thank you. I'm like literally like, who's the one that was just him? Like he did it with Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
That's who my favorite is.
Christian Bale, I think. Christian Bale in general is an amazing actor as well. For any of his character portrayals is usually spot on.
I agree.
Ben Affleck, no, I couldn't get into him either.
That was more of a joke. So we've talked about the different characters and who's done how they've been different portrayals and they fit the time frame and all that. But we're already halfway through the show. And what was the tool that the Joker was?
Okay, so the tool that we pulled, that I equated with being hyper observant, is a magnifying glass. It's really looking at things in a minute detail and also taking some small things that you may observe and then growing them out of proportion in your mind, and then it becoming overwhelming, even though what it was, that event or that thing that you saw, was actually, that molehill that you then built into the mountain. And, looking at life through that magnifying glass, I think is great in some respects, as I mentioned before, about, situational awareness, those types of things. Being a project manager, it was all about the details. But at the same time, if you look at those details, and depending on what details you focus on, it can become super overwhelming and drive you into withdrawal from society, withdrawal from your family, withdrawal from work, or at least compartmentalizing, which I don't believe. I mean, we can say we consciously try to compartmentalize. Your mind actually does do that naturally. And in fact, in a lot of cases, you don't even know it's been compartmentalized until a trigger comes and it all of a sudden you feel this emotion. You remember something that you haven't remembered since your childhood. Those triggers come out. The mind, in my opinion, is the greatest database in the world in that it stores everything. The challenge is how you retrieve it and how you connect those memories to come out into your life. And oftentimes we don't have a lot of control on that because we don't even consciously think about that. But it happens. It happens in your dreams. It happens in your daydreams. It happens in life when those triggers just come up and bang, it hits you square in the face. And it's like, why am I all of a sudden wanting to cry? Because I walked past a bakery and I smelled the donuts, and the donuts reminded me of my grandma, and my grandma's dead. And those are the types of things that oftentimes we don't understand is happening in our lives, and yet they affect it. And then not only does it affect you, it affects the person you're with, because they're like, why are you crying now? I don't understand that. And they start, either consoling you or trying to say, what's your problem? One of the two.
Yeah.
And then that reinforces a response, or it reinforces a memory in your mind in a way that may not be empowering. So, yeah.
So I like your analogy on that, though, because being a microscope is a good way of analyzing.
Microscope. We can talk microscope or magnifying glass. Both are kind of doing this.
Oh, that's right. We did that on the show too, didn't we? I screwed that up. Magnifying glass. So on the magnifying glass one, I think it's interesting because when you do hold it under, you're supposed to emphasize everything. It's supposed to make it bigger. You're seeing it closer. You're seeing into things. You melt ants with it. But at the end of the day, you see, I know I could see the computer lag with the laugh. That's funny. But like, I literally am looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, so under a microscope, magnifying glass, I could see all the first three that we've talked about, from Cesar Ramon to Jack Nicholson to Heath Ledger. But the Joaquin Phoenix one, I think, shows a whole different depiction of it. It's his life under that magnifying glass. And it makes us have to look at more than just him as a bad guy. And I think that's why a lot of people were scared of it. Is it's not him being crazy lunatic that just wants to kill people. He didn't even have a gun at the beginning of the movie and all that. And we also have to remember this is a movie. In real life, though, those situations play out where he has the stress of his mom. He has the stress of not affording his bills. He has the stress of being beat up for a very low job and feeling insignificant. Like you said at the beginning, walking on the other side of the street. In Vegas, you and I were walking around and people walked right up to me and offered me drugs. And I just thought to myself in that moment, what type of face do I have? I have a punchable face, I have a drug dealer face, and I have a cop face. And I'm like, what else do I have in there? Because everybody reads me differently. And with Joaquin Phoenix's role, he had that everybody's reading me negatively. And someone with a mental illness who does things to make others happy so they can feel better about themselves, so I feel better about myself. I see Joaquin Phoenix, and I saw where he was coming from and the brokenness that was there. And for me, it was a totally different movie because I saw multiple times where they could actually pull it back and they could have helped him, from his therapist to social worker to when his mom passed away to his boss. And he was always giving. And I felt like that during that movie. And for me, I agree with you, Brian Tracy. Stuart, you really need to see the Christian Bale one. They are phenomenal. I look at life as how we have these magnifying glasses on us in our eyes. And sometimes we're just cooking because we feel the weight of society on us. And sometimes we just feel like everyone's watching us and we're all just an ant. And that's why I related to this movie and I'm connecting your tool to it.
Yeah,
to
you're
I'm
right.
tool.
And sometimes we feel that the magnifying glass is on us. And that's when people get real hypersensitive about anything they hear around them because they feel they're saying things about me. They're
Yeah,
looking at me and then they're saying these things. I'm walking past them and I'm feeling these things. Um, you know, Joaquin Phoenix and his uncontrolled maniacal laughter was almost like a Tourette's, right?
correct.
It was
Hmm.
something that when he got into a stressful situation or an uncomfortable situation, he would uncontrollably start laughing, and it would all most well. First of all, the way he laughed was uncomfortable for people, but also the reasons that he was saying it was at the time that he would break out that way would be uncomfortable because it wasn't that type of a situation. And people with Tourette's experience that throughout their entire life because they don't have that control over that whatever that trigger event is, then triggering that response or that thing that they have. And
Hmm.
then I have there's actually somebody in my family that eventually committed suicide because of um, Tourette's and the feeling that he had or the way that people were treating him, even though he was an attorney. And
Really?
he
So
was
you associate him with being smart and not having these issues.
right, right. So that's one thing, and the other thing that came out in the movie, and we talked about it in the recorded version as well, is that the worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't.
Hmm.
And that is something that is we've got this norm and everybody's got their own version of what a normal person is, but we've got this norm that we try to compare everybody else to. And if they don't fit in your normal or if they don't fit in a comfortable uh, profile of what is comfortable to you, you tend to shy away from them. You tend to give them less attention. You tend to give them negative attention if they're, say, on your team.
Right.
Oftentimes, when you're a leader in a company, you have a particular natural energy, a particular natural genius. That genius may be that you love being around people, you love networking, you love going out and just connecting with people that way. But if you have somebody in your team that is more of an introvert and more detail oriented, when you take them into that environment that you like, they are really at they're diseased. They're not at ease. And if you
Correct.
continue to bring them into that role or you expect them to do that, because oftentimes you assign them a job, you're going to go to this event and you're going to just, get connections and so forth. And these people are out there and yes, they can do it. I can do it. I'm more of that detail person. I can do it, but I expend a lot of energy. If that was my job to do it, it would drive me
Mhm.
crazy.
I I can understand that.
So when you build a team, you have to respect the energies that are natural to other people and place them in a role that takes advantage of it, as opposed to pushing into something that is comfortable for you, but and then you expect it to be comfortable for everybody else. Or you build your team of nothing but people that are like you, and then you have an imbalanced energy around your team because now everybody's out there socializing, but nobody's actually looking at the details. Nobody's actually really paying attention to the customer. Nobody's coming up with these, visions of where the company can go because you're so happy just connecting with people all the time. And you're great marketing, but if you don't have a product, if you don't have a service, if you don't have a focus on what's going on behind the scenes, it's not going to function as well as it could.
I agree. I also think it's interesting because they say that there's a fine line between crazy and genius. And I say that because Joaquin Phoenix's role, the Joker, and then you look at people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And if you ever read anything about Steve Jobs, you read he is a tyrant. He is an asshole. He is determined in what he wants. But he's also very fair and like says, I don't know what this is. How can you get this? And if you're like, oh, you can't, then he's done with you. Like, he's very, very much like that. And I 100% think that that is what they mean by there's a fine line between genius and psycho or psychotic is we're all not that far away from being able to be a Joaquin Phoenix and or a Joker with like life, like, and it takes a lot more to be that genius, like, but like he was. What's his name? Steve Jobs.
Yeah, well, that's when you got to find a COO to really deal with the people aspect as a leader of the company, and let the CEO, the creator, kind of focus on the creative aspect of the company, because oftentimes creators are very task oriented. They're very much like, okay, this is what I want you to do, and they give you this short sentence about what they want you to do, but in their mind they just told you an entire paragraph of how to do it, and the person goes like, okay, and then whatever they deliver, the creator's like, that's not what I asked for. Well, that's what you told me. No, I told you this, which is this whole paragraph. And you're like, no, you told me this, which is this one little sentence. In your mind, though, you thought you told them the entire paragraph. And, it kind of goes along with, Jack Nicholson in his role. One of the lines that really got me there was when Batman was talking to the reporter, who was Vicky Vale, but they were talking about the Joker, and Batman is saying he's psychotic. And the reporter responds back to Batman, some people say the same thing about you. So that's where the villain and the hero, the good leader and the bad leader, they oftentimes have very similar aspects. It's all in the way that it's either played out or in the way that they can work it to their advantage or disadvantage. But that psychosis, or that what made Steve Jobs great is that ability to create and kind of live in a world that nobody even envisions yet. But when you try to bring that to somebody to create it, they're like, I don't follow how to get there. But there are energies of people. If you build a balanced organization, you can get the people that actually kind of understand that creative aspect, but also have a detail side to them. And they're the ones that can take that creative idea and bring in the details and actually make it work in a system.
Mm-hmm.
You can have that same creative person that's also very much people oriented, and that can come together in an amazing marketing person, say like an Oprah, where Oprah never really created anything per se, like a book or something, but she sold millions.
True.
By being able to see the creativity of the person that wrote that book, the value of it, and then bring it out in a way that it really connected with people. And so if you build a balanced organization, even though you may have these psychotic aspects of how you're looking at life, either totally detailed or totally customer focused, if you have a balanced team, there's ways that you can actually make that wheel work. And that's why I've always said, as a leader, never treat your people as spokes or cogs in a wheel. They're more than just a cog in the wheel. And what you need to explain to them is how their role in the organization actually makes that wheel go around. and that there, if that spoke comes out of the wheel, you weaken the way the rest of the wheel can work. So when you teach, and as a effective leader, being able to describe kind of the whole wheel and then describe your role in the wheel really helps people understand why I do what I do, even though sometimes what I do doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense. But when I take it in context of the rest of the wheel, it makes perfect sense.
I like what Stuart says here. He says there are some mental illnesses that don't have great external noticeable presence. I can attest to that. I agree 100%. I know Brian Tracy says, I hear you, Stuart, 100%. The difference between
everybody has some level of mental illness. Because there is no such thing as a perfect person, right? So there's always something in our lives, in our psyche, in our beliefs, in our view of ourselves, and in our perception of ourselves that could be, if it expands or if we allow it to take over, could really, express itself outwardly. But it oftentimes affects us inwardly.
True.
We were talking about this even, before the show. I was saying that, I've got this, I tend to have this tendency to want to be a perfectionist. But when you're a perfectionist, you don't oftentimes get your ideas out because you're like, no, I can make it better. No, I can make it better. I don't want it to go out until it's perfect. Well, perfect in my mind, perfect in your mind are two totally different things. But it can drive you into a situation where you don't ever get the opportunity to take things out. So that's it doesn't matter who you talk to. It doesn't matter whether it be a Tony Robbins or you're the person you think that is most balanced that in your life. They do have aspects of mental illness or mental weakness that are not normally seen, but there's times that they will be. There's times that they are expressed.
I was giving you a compliment, and then you kept talking about mental illness, and it looked like I was making fun of you.
Yeah.
I was like, he thinks I'm making fun of him now, but at the beginning of his sentence, he was being nice to himself, and I was having fun with this. I do like what they're saying here. Stuart Owenwolf said, the difference between sanity and madness is objectivity. Creative genius can be found most in the minds that don't share your objective reality. Just listening to others. I love it. Remove all the spokes and reinvent your wheel, people. I'm adding the people just because I felt like that's what it should sound like.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. One of my mantras is, if it ain't broke, break it, because you can probably make it better.
I mean, my mom hated when I said that when I dropped her pot, but like her coffee pot, right. I'm like, no, we need to break it to make it better. No, that doesn't work with glass pots. So don't make sure you know what you're breaking. Yeah, we got a Keurig. So yeah, I think we did get a better one.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that kind of goes along with what Stuart was saying is a way to try and view a situation, view a perception that you have by changing your perspective from looking from the inside out to looking from the outside in at you, to be an observer of you. And through that perspective, taking into consideration your feelings, your beliefs, the way that you've responded, by kind of stepping back and looking at it from the outside. But even as an observer, oftentimes an observer has a bias on the event or on the person that you're looking at when you're looking at yourself. So you take one further step back and become the observer of the observer looking at you. By taking that one further step back, you tend to take those preconceived notions that you have, those biases, those things that could affect the event that you're looking at, the person that you're looking at, by being the observer of the observer looking at that. Now you become even more disassociated with it, so you can look at it from a more objective perspective. Not always an easy thing to do. Because oftentimes when we say, we have an out-of-body experience, we have an out-of-body experience where we view our life from another perspective, but yet to a certain degree, we may have influence over that, or because we see it, we actually have an impact on the perception that we're having as the observer. But as the observer of the observer, you don't. So it's kind of like in a movie, somebody watching the movie, and then say the director watches the movie, right? He watches the acting, and he's got a picture in his mind of what is going on. But if you are the observer of the director who's watching the movie, you get a more disassociated view of what's happening on stage.
True. That's true.
A
needle pulling thread. You said I'm not so.
You can hear Brian talks about, having a mental illness until he learned his true purpose in life. That oftentimes is the way that you can get yourself out of a state of mental illness, is to realize or to find that higher purpose in your life. To find that thing that you are really good at, that you enjoy doing, and that actually is contributing to more than yourself, contributing to your kids, contributing to your family, contributing to your friends, contributing to your business, contributing to humanity. And a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, hey, Jacob, how you doing out there? Jacob's a cousin of mine from Sweden. How you doing?
No way! Hey, Jacob.
Man, when Jacob was here in the U.S., we went out drinking. We had a good time. It was amazing.
He knows you well.
To have cousins from all over the world checking in.
I am her cousin. She knows you well.
Exactly.
That your family tunes in a lot, and I love that. I want to thank your family from all over the world. They tune in to hear about your leadership lessons and all that, and I want you to know that is a great family thing. I love that your family does that.
I tell you, I've only had an opportunity to really meet the family in Sweden twice. Once when I was like 14 years old, 15, and then another when I was like in the late 20s. And I got to admit that, both times was amazing. The family over there is amazing. But when I was in the 20s and we could go out drinking, it was a hell of a lot more fun.
I'm sure it was.
But finding that true purpose in your life is really important. And
I agree.
And it's when we have to step back, kind of that the observer thing, and really look at ourselves from a very objective perspective and say, what is a strength that we have? Because we do have strengths. Everybody's got a strength. Everybody's got a genius that they can do something better than the person next to them. It's a matter of us recognizing it ourselves and then being able to do something that leverages it, that takes advantage of it, that enables us to be able to allow that genius to shine. And when we do, that significance in life, that purpose in life really become tangible and allow us to pull ourselves out of oftentimes the the state of mind, if it's not an empowering state of mind, to take us out of that disempowering state of mind and put us into an empowering state of mind.
Yes, I can agree with that. Like the Joker felt he did when he broke free at the end of the movie.
Yes. And again, the difference between the hero and the villain is not so much that they both don't have some level of mental illness. It's in how they've used that mental illness to gain the significance that we all need to have. And whether it's an empowering thing for others and humanity, or whether it is something that is more focused on our very specific internal needs, which can often be, one where I will gladly step on someone in order to move up in a company, as opposed to recognize that if I work with someone and we collaborate and we actually make something together, that's going to be far more empowering to us, the company, etc., than me stepping on someone in order to be able to get ahead. As a leader, I've run into that many times where people ask me, what did you accomplish? And I'm like, well, my team, this is what we did. And they're like, no. What did you do? I'm like, I was the fucking leader. I guide the team. I helped to synergize our energies and create what we did. But if it wasn't for the team, I wouldn't have accomplished jack.
Mm-hmm.
So give that team the recognition. And when you do that, you're actually empowering others. You're empowering yourself. You're looking at a higher level. You're resonating at a higher level, a higher frequency. And to increase the resonance of our frequency really is what that energy, that aura that we have around us really gets to grow and really helps others, even beyond what we even think is what happens. So absolutely.
I like Stuart's comment here, and we'll use this to segue into the last one of the day, the last thing of the day, and get ready to take off. Unless you have something else, Brett. Who's on your mug? Who's on your mug?
These are the Marvel superheroes.
I love how it, can you see how it changed because of the green screen and all that? Like the Hulk is not the Hulk on there.
In there, you can't see it. Like the Hulk, you can't see because it falls into the green screen.
Oh, that's funny. When those observers share their observations in your mind where they were created, things can get increasingly complicated. 100%. That is nailed it. I agree. So next Thursday, Brett, what are we talking about? Your decision. Actually, you think for a second. I got to check something because you and I talked about this, and I want to make sure we don't miss our opportunity on this. Space Jam comes out in theaters and HBO Max.
Yeah. HBO Max is doing a lot of the premieres on HBO Max.
Guess what, buddy? July 16th. That's next Friday.
Well,
do you want to do Space Jam next week?
Tonight, I'm going to go see the premiere of The Black Widow.
Oh. Ooh. Brian Tracy threw in Lord of the Rings. We got 3 in the hat.
We need to still do an episode on Lord of the Rings.
We do.
Maybe, Brian, if you want to do the Lord of the Rings, we could have you as a guest actually doing the review of the Lord of the Rings. How about that?
What do you think, Brian?
I think that would be awesome.
I like that a lot because then you can do the recording and we can have the conversation. I have to watch it to have it because I've seen Lord of the Rings. I like that a lot. Brian, if you're in for that, I love it. Or, hey, Jacob, do us a favor and let me know if you have a movie you think we should see. And Stuart, I'm going to throw this at you, buddy. Make sure you write your movie. If you have a movie, oh damn, I love that. If you have a movie you would like to critique and help us build like a better like leadership style and all that, and you want to break down a movie that you see something different with, guess what? We're going to put you on here. That might work. Guess what? Brian Tracy, next Thursday, we'll see you live right here.
No. We got to schedule this because we got to make sure Brian can do it. We got to make sure we can get a recorded version out there so that people can get a basic idea of what we're doing before we go into the live. But we'll get that scheduled, Brian.
Perfect. Go ahead.
In the meantime, I think maybe next week we'll do Inside Out.
Ooh, I do like Inside Out.
We've done it, just to let everybody know, we've got a number of recorded versions that Brandon and I have done. We had a couple episodes where we had guests on the show as well. Inside Out actually is one of them. So it's gonna. I think we did a great job of it, and it's a different type of a feeling than the Joker for sure. So
honestly, I like it. Next Thursday.
Inside Out, and then let's see. I know I will be in LA, and I'll look.
Lord of the Rings will take more than one show. I agree with Stuart. You know what, Stuart? Yeah. I like your comment here, but that means both of you need to come on now and have one, and I will be Frodo Baggins.
Well,
I know you.
Lord of the Rings is about that. Lord of the Rings is one of those where you can't just do kind of necessarily the movie because there's so much going on. It's just like Harry Potter. You can't just do Harry Potter movies. You have to look like Hermione and then Harry Potter and then, the different characters in there or something, because there's just so much to try to take in and work it into a single episode or a single view or a single meaning. There's a lot of meanings that go on in there. Samwise is a totally different type of a person than Frodo.
Yeah, he's Rudy.
Yeah, he's Rudy too.
Look at Brandon pull that shit. Oh, and I'm not a movie guy, guys. That's why Brett's laughing so hard. I just pulled two movies together that I normally can't do stuff like that. So I'm making him laugh. Guys, next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, EDT. That's right, JD. I said that for you, Jessica Dugas. And Brett Gordon, that's 3 p.m. Pacific District Time, Daylight Time. I'm learning the D's. I'm supposed to put the D everywhere. Brett, tell everybody what this is and who we are and why they should tune in.
All right, everybody. This is One Square at a Time, where we take the perspective of a king on a chessboard that can move one square at a time, either forwards, backwards, or to the side, and we apply it to life and leadership in a way that we bring it to you through either superheroes or movies that enable us to connect with you in a sense of understanding the movie, and then bring out those tools that we can use in life, like today, the magnifying glass, to where if we recognize that hyper observancy or being able to look at things through a magnifying glass can be both good and bad. If we get too fixated in either direction, it's also to show that the difference between a hero and a villain is in the details of how they use the tools of their life. And this is Brandon Croucher of Delight CBD, the tasteless, odorless, the only tasteless, odorless CBD product on the market that you can bring with you on the go. And it's as easy to use as ABCBD.
You know what? That was better than 90% of the people that do the marketing that I have tried to say it. So you know what, Brett Gordon, I'm giving you an A- on that.
Woohoo!
Like, oh, by the way, I have to pick on Brett for a second, and it's hilarious. So right before the show, Brett's like, "Hey B, I'm gonna get my glass of water. I'm ready for tonight's episode. I'm really excited." And all of a sudden, I have my headphones in. I'm getting water. He's getting water. All of a sudden, I hear, "Woo!" from. I'm in the bathroom, and in my headset, I hear this "woo." I thought Brett kicked a dog across the room. It sounded so funny. I was like, "Brett, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was just pumping myself up." I laughed so hard. Ladies and gentlemen, one square at a time. See you next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Brandon Croucher, Brett Gordon, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.